So 1 year ago today, I was at a dinner in Washington, D.C., sitting next to Robert Kahn. Robert Kahn, along with Vint Cerf, are commonly acknowledged to be the fathers of the internet. And I was sitting there with Bob, and he said to me, blockchain is going to be bigger than the internet. Welcome to the future. And I'm going to talk about why I think blockchain is bigger than the internet. I joined Overstock.com about 16 years ago, fairly early on the wave of e-commerce. There weren't a lot of people doing e-commerce in 1999, and that's when I joined. A little bit over 4 years ago, we made the decision at Overstock to be the first billion-dollar retailer to accept Bitcoin. And when we did that, boy, the buzz was enormous. Last year, we began accepting about 50 different cryptocurrencies on our site. And while those revenues from cryptocurrencies are small, about 0.2%, they are a growing portion of our revenue. And it's interesting, those internet cryptocurrency users spend more, about twice as much more per order than our average order size. So it's a loyal group of people. After we started accepting Bitcoin, we realized that blockchain is more than Bitcoin. And I have this old green screen computer on this slide for a reason. When I received my first email from my mother when I was a college student on CompuServe, I thought that email was the internet. Turns out the internet was so much more. If we were using today's vernacular, we would say that email was the first killer app on the internet. Well, Bitcoin is the first killer app on blockchain technology. Today, the current process when you and I transact in various ways is to go through a series of trust brokers. That might be the government, it might be a bank, it might be a broker, it might be payment agents. It can be all kinds of different brokers that allow you and me to transact even though we don't know each other. But every trust broker is a rent-seeking institution. They take time, they take money, and they add the risk of fraud to the system. Blockchain technology gets rid of those trust brokers. And you'll often hear people say that blockchain technology is trustless technology. I don't like that term. What I like is the term trust through technology, because when we are transferring assets, you and I, using blockchain technology, we have an electronic digital handshake that's like the handshake of old. We know each other, and we know that we can trust each other. So Medici Ventures, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Overstock.com, is set up to advance blockchain technology to democratize capital, to eliminate those middlemen, and ultimately to rehumanize commerce so that you and I can deal with each other without so many institutions in the middle. And to date, we've invested in 12 different companies that are using blockchain in the capital market space, in money and banking, in property registry, in identification, and in voting. And I want to talk about two of those areas briefly today in how blockchain can be a solution for global poverty. First in banking the unbanked, and then in unleashing dead capital in the developing world. Gabriel Abed is the founder of one of Medici's portfolio companies, Bit.com. And he said something that's really important to understand, that it is expensive to be poor. In the Caribbean, where Bit is located, 40% of the population doesn't have a bank account. South America, that's about 70%. In Africa, it's upwards of 90%. Even here in the United States, it's approaching 10%. If you don't have a bank account, living in the 21st century is difficult. You have to be paid in cash. You have to store your money in cash. You have to pay people in cash. You can't participate in e-commerce. You can't pay bills online. You don't have a credit card or a debit card. Bit.com is working to solve that problem, and it's working to solve it two ways. First, it's created a wallet that's rolled out in Barbados and is rolling out in other areas of the Caribbean based on blockchain technology that allows people to convert their Bayesian fiat-issued dollars into a digital currency. They no longer need a bank account. I use a bank account for two things: to store my money so that when I get a paycheck, it's electronically transferred into my bank account, and to have access to digital currency, which for me is a credit card or a debit card. If you're unbanked, you don't have either of those things, but having a digital wallet lets you do that. The other thing that BIT is doing, and they had a big announcement just yesterday, they are working with two central banks in the Caribbean, one with the country of Montserrat, and the other with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, which represents 8 Caribbean nations, to get them to issue a portion of their fiat currency digitally that will then trade on BIT's M-Money wallet digitally on the blockchain. We've invested in another company down in South America called Ripio, which is using blockchain technology to help the unbanked. Ripio has a 30-something-year-old CEO who 3 times in his lifetime has seen the value of the Argentinian peso go to zero. When you live in a country with hyperinflation like that, what do you do when you are paid? You spend your money as quickly as you can, because the bread you could buy today will cost more tomorrow and more next week. By allowing people to transfer their Argentinian pesos into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, Ripio is creating a better store of value for those people than the local fiat currency. We're helping bank the unbanked, and we're helping the unbanked have a place to store currency in a better way. In Peru, there is a famous economist named Hernando de Soto. And he said the hour of capitalism's greatest triumph is, in the eyes of 4/5 of the country, the hour of crisis. He wrote a book called The Mystery of Capital: Why Capitalism Works in the West and Nowhere Else. It doesn't work in other parts of the world because other parts of the world don't have good land titling systems so that people who own property can prove they own it. If you can't prove you own property, some of the problems are it's more difficult to sell your property. It's more difficult to subdivide your property. And importantly, it's difficult to borrow against your property. Just about every entrepreneur that I know has started their business by taking a second mortgage on a home. They were able to take proof that they own something and leverage it into capital to build something else. That's what we're doing in 4/5 of the world. You see, because they do have something that says they own the property, it's just extra legal. It's unofficial ledgers. It could be mining claims posted on a tree. It could be chalkboards on top of buildings in a favela. We are working with a company called De Soto Inc. that is now taking these unofficial ledgers, putting them on the blockchain so the owners of property have a better way to prove that they own capital. Today, if they want to do that through the legal system, it takes years and years and, unfortunately, bribes and bribes. We surface their informal ledgers, we put them on the blockchain, and they can now access capital that they couldn't otherwise have. Blockchain unleashes dead capital. It will create more wealth in the developing world than all the money that the West has ever given in the history of the West to the developing world. Hernando de Soto, Patrick Byrne, my business partner at Overstock, have come together to find a way to use blockchain to unleash dead capital. Blockchain is the future. It will allow us to transfer assets digitally the same way that the internet has allowed us to transfer information digitally. Indeed, the blockchain is going to be bigger than the internet. Thanks so much.